Okay, this is going to be a tutorial on my landscape generator package. So, before you get the landscape generator package, you are going to want to import the characters, effects, and environment packages. Cross-platform input editor, physics materials, and utility all come with these packages. Once you've done that, you are going to want to make a scene, have a scene there, and then you're going to want to add the tags terrain, water, tree, and detail ob. Okay, once you've added those tags, you can download the landscape generator. Once you've downloaded it, you can go to Assets, Prefab, and drag in your generator prefab. Now make sure you have those tags, or else it's going to give you a bunch of errors and this will not work. So, once you have the generator prefab in the scene, you can turn off show logo because that just puts a logo at the bottom of the generator. Okay, so there's general settings, terrain detail settings, tree settings, water settings, and detail object settings. That's a lot. So I'm going to go over all the options you need to know in all of these settings and the generator run on start and what the heck this does here. So we are going to start off with general settings. As you can see with the landscape generator manual, you can see what all these settings mean in further depth here. And this will just be in landscape generator documentation, landscape generator manual. There's also one on procedural terrains and how those will work. So if you need to know more on how the procedural terrains or how the anything works in the landscape generator, then you can read the manual. Okay, so I'm going to be going down the list on how to generate your terrain from scratch. So, auto-generate will, as you can see, there's generate, destroy, and finish. Finish will pack up the terrain and organize it. Destroy will destroy the current terrain and all the objects. And generate will generate it. So, auto-generate will just combine all three of those into one big button. And it'll destroy the current one, then generate, and then finish. Okay, generate separately. You can generate the terrain, generate the trees, generate the water, generate the details, destroy or finish it, and you can do all of these separately. So if you need to test one of them at once, that is a great way to do it. Use player means you can have a player in your scene be controlled by the generator itself. So what this does is when you put in your player and you have use player selected, it will, when you generate the terrain, put the player on any position in the terrain randomly, and it will make sure that the player is above the terrain and not going to fall through. Okay, so now that we have that, I'm not going to use a player. Use multiple terrains. If you put any terrains in here, we have many presets. As you can see, if we go into Landscape Generator, Assets, Pre-built Terrains, there are 5 preset terrains that you can use. There is also a procedural terrain object here. Don't use that, because that is for the procedural terrain generation, so there's actually 4, but I like to say 5, because procedural terrain acts like another terrain. So, terrains, you can put all of them in if you want, and it'll just choose one randomly and generate it. Use procedural terrain. A procedural terrain will generate the terrain, hills and bumps and all that for you. So that's what we are going to do. So let's generate the terrain. So I'm going to turn on generate separately, and we are going to, oh man, maybe because I selected use player. see what I'm getting here. Okay, so that is another thing I forgot about. Let's make sure, X that out. That's another thing I forgot about, that you have to make sure that your terrains thing here, if you're using multiple terrains, then you don't have two and you don't have a null one like that, or else it will give you a bunch of errors, and that's not what we want. Okay, so now that we're back on track, we will learn how to use this. Turn off fuse player again. Generate separately. Good, so I'm going to generate the terrain, and as you can see, we have gotten terrain generated here, and it will load in as we get closer to it, load in higher levels of detail. We've got very nice terrain. Okay, so as you can see, I already have the textures inputted here. We'll go over terrain texture settings in a minute, but the width scale will, basically if we change this down to something like 70, and we destroy and then generate again, we can see that it's crumpled together. So basically, the width scale determines the scale of the object, and the height scale is, if we turn this up to like 5, so let's turn this up even higher. As you can see, it determines how much those little bumps affect the terrain, basically. So now we have a really smooth terrain. Okay. So, now we've done that, I'm going to change it back to 105. After we regenerate the terrain, we will see that there is sand in the areas where there's going to be water. Now if we generate the water right now, as you can see here, it has preset water. You can see that the sand matches up exactly with the water, and that is what we want. So, if this doesn't happen, contact me and I will see if I can help you with that. Anyways, let's get rid of this water because we're not doing that right now. So now that we've generated a terrain, we can, if we want just smooth generation, completely smooth, then we can check this, and this will make a very, very smooth terrain, and we don't want that though, that's boring. So let's generate bumpy terrain with detail. That's for like meadows and low-level islands. The detail scale, let's change this down to 2. That is basically how much detail there is on your terrain. We're going to want this up higher. So if we change it to 4, see what that does. Yeah, it's a lot of detail. So now we've got plenty of detail on our terrain. Okay. We'll change it back to 3.5 actually. Here we go. So now we have these settings covered. Let's go to terrain textures. Now if you have imported the environment package correctly, it should have grass, hill albedo, cliff albedo specular, sand albedo already in there. Terrain texture normals come with the landscape generator, I believe. Now how come I have terrain normals here? Oh no, I'm sorry. I messed up. The landscape generator will put terrain normals in your standard assets for you. That's why they're there. Yeah, so they do come with the landscape generator. Okay, once we have that done, let's have the cliff normals there. And see that? Now, you might be asking me, how do you know what texture to put in what area? Well, if you hover over it, it shows you. The first texture is the grass layer, the second texture is the rocky layer, and the third texture is the sand layer. So that's how you know, and it's the same for this. The terrain texture smoothness is going to be 0, 1, and 0.3 for these. I have already preset those in the generator prefab, and I don't feel like changing it because they're very convenient. And this is why I'm getting this error here. Okay. So if we set this to 3, we can set the metallic levels, and we don't want any metallicness on our terrain. Okay, so I will make sure to fix that before the package gets uploaded, so you don't have to deal with that inconvenience there. Okay, so the specular colors will basically mean what color it reflects onto your camera. If you want it to reflect red, you can do that, but I don't. I just want it to be white. And that's what you're usually going to use, unless you have some alien planet, which should be very neat. So our sand height is set to 23. I'm going to generate again. And see, now it takes longer to generate. That's why the sand was generating a little weird. So now that we have even better sand generation, and the reason the sand was okay with the settings here is because the terrain already has the textures and normals on it. But now we can change these, like the width scale, and we will get better sand generation. So let's leave it at 70. 70 is kind of interesting, right? Okay. So let's go to terrain detail settings in the next tutorial video, and that should be it. Oh, and I forgot one setting. Rocky Blend. Rocky Blend will determine, if you hover over it, oh, I do not have any text for that, that's weird. Anyways, it'll determine how much grass or rocks there are. So at 1, there's less rocks and less grass, or more grass. But if we turn it down to 0.2 and generate, we can see that there is way more rock than grass, and there's hardly any grass at all, if any. Okay, so now you know a little bit about how the landscape generator works. See you in the next tutorial video.